Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, let's check out my podcast editing template for Ableton Live. This template was built using only basic Ableton devices that are available in Live Lite and Live Intro, so that basically anyone can use it. I might set up a more advanced template specifically for Live Standard and Suite users. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. There's just one third-party plugin that I recommend downloading and installing for use with this template. It's free and there's a link in the description, so jump down and have a look for that one. Let's jump in. All right, so let's start off by just checking out the tracks here in the template. It's set up with just 2 audio tracks at the moment, one for the host, one for the guest. You can obviously duplicate those if you need more speakers, more voices in your template, but this is just the basic setup for now. So if we click on the host track here, you can see there's a bunch of devices. We've got channel EQ, compressor, EQ, limiter, and then a vocal gate. Same on the guest track. Those 2 tracks are grouped together where we have a de-esser, another compressor, and then another limiter. The top audio track here is for the intro and outro music. So this is provided by my client. We'll worry about that later. And then on the master channel, the output, got another limiter and a LUFS meter. So this is the third-party plugin that I was talking about before. This helps us measure the output volume of our tracks. I've got this set up to about -16 LUFS. I'll show you how that works later. All right, so how I normally start, I'm going to look at the host track first. I'll find a section of audio that has some loud parts and some quieter parts. And I'm going to use that as my reference to set up the audio devices. So we'll start by setting the compressor.
Having grown up, it's very hard to teach that concept. It is.
You can see here there's a little bit of dynamic reduction going on. I like to aim for about -3 or -4 decibels. So I'm going to boost, rather than bring the threshold down, I'm going to boost into it by using the output of this EQ. So let's just give it 4 dB.
Having grown up, it's very hard to teach that concept. It is a nuance that is really tough, but I think the fact that you've acknowledged it and understand it and then sort of
Cool, happy with that. We can always go back and adjust these things later, but I like to set them up before I start making any cuts. Okay, now the EQ.
Having grown up, it's very hard to teach that concept. It is a nuance that is really tough, but I think the fact that you've acknowledged it and understand it and then sort of are living that now is.
All right, at this point, I will check the LUFS meter on the output track.
Having grown up, it's very hard to teach that concept. It is a nuance that is really tough, but I think the fact.
So I'm looking for between -15 and -16 LUFS, so it's a little bit quiet at this point. So I'll jump in here. I'm going to boost the gain on the limiter here. Let's give it 3 dB. And then we'll go back and test the LUFS again.
Having grown up, it's very hard to teach that concept. It is a nuance that is really tough, but I think the fact that you've acknowledged it and understand it and then sort of.
Cool. That'll do for now. All right, let's repeat that on the guest track.
Also, if something was to go wrong, you have, people in HR, you have people in, whatever. Like there was just so many other people involved, whereas coming and working on the farm where you've got maybe you and
the guest's audio here is a little bit more dynamic, meaning there's more loud parts and quiet parts. The difference between loud and quiet parts is greater. So I'm going to push it a bit harder into the compressor to try and level out some of those dynamics.
Also, if something was to go wrong, you have, people in HR, you have people in, whatever. Like there was just so many other people involved, whereas coming and working on the farm where you've got maybe you and another person, or, you know, maybe it's just you. It was for me, I was just like, oh, like, what do you mean? Like, what have you got on? Like, surely that can wait. Oh, you know, we need to go and do this. No, nothing can wait. Also, if something was to go wrong, you have, you know, people in HR, you have people in, you know, whatever. Like, there was just so many other people involved, whereas
it's a little bit hot, so I'm going to turn it back down, drop that to 2 dB.
Also, if something was to go wrong, you have, you know, people in HR.
Sweet as. Okay, now finally, what I like to do is just have a listen at the transition between the guests and the host and the guest's audio, and just listen to hear whether they sound about the same level or even the same sort of tone.
Me to get my head around, like, what are those things that have taken so long for you to, like, now that you're sort of secondary instincts, other than obviously can't run to town and the convenience thing?
I think definitely the work. I struggled to understand.
I think that's pretty good for now. As I said, we can always adjust things later. We've got a rough setup. All right, I should tell you about some shortcuts that we use. The first and most commonly used is this one here called cut time. So that's Shift Command X. But essentially what that does is it removes anything within that time slot. So the reason we use that is that it maintains the timing. So if I select this section here and go Shift Command X, you'll see that everything is brought up to maintain the timing. Very, very handy. The second one we use a lot is Command E, which is split. And what it does is essentially just cuts out a section. I'll show you how that's used later. And finally, the last shortcut I use quite often is insert time, which is Command I. So if you Command I, it gives you this option to select how much time you want to insert, or you can just highlight a section, hit Command I, and it will duplicate that selection into silence. And you'll notice that everything gets shifted down when you do that. Cool. Let's do some chopping.
And we can get going. Katie, thank you.
All right, so that's the start. We'll grab this, drag it down into the intro music.
Katie, thank you so much for joining me. Katie, thank you.
Just do that roughly since this is just a demo.
Katie, thank you so much for joining me on the Generation Ag podcast. Very excited to have you on. I think you've got an amazing story to share, and I think a lot of our listeners will be thrilled to have your story shared. And
all right, so Shift Command X. You'll notice that where you make cuts in Ableton, it creates these automatic fades. So you can use those to create smooth transitions.
Have your story shared and hear a little bit more about you. So starting off, we always ask our guests, where you come from, tell us a bit more about you. Starting off, we always ask our guests where you.
Sounds like Lavinia is a bit nervous today.
We always ask our guests where you come from. Tell us a little bit about you and your background to coming into agriculture.
All right, let's just listen back over this. I like to look away when I check over edits so that you don't see the edits coming. That way you're listening to it in the way that a listener would listen.
I think a lot of our listeners will be thrilled to have your story shared and hear a little bit more about you. Starting off, we always ask our guests, where you come from? Tell us a little bit about you and your background coming into agriculture.
Oh, thank
Now, this first opening phrase by the guest is a little bit quiet. So this is where I'm going to use that Shift E shortcut to separate this section, and we can boost the gain on this.
Coming into agriculture.
Oh, thank you. Thank
The gap's a bit long, so we'll just trim the time.
Coming into agriculture.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I don't.
Oh, I forgot to talk about the grids. Ableton is a grid-based DAW, and by default, I think everything snaps to grids. And you can, if you don't like that, you can turn it off by right-clicking in here, turn off Snap to Grid. I actually like it, but I like to set it to narrowest. Just gives a little bit more a finer grid.
For having me. So I don't have a background in agriculture. I come from the city. Have a background in agriculture. I come from the city, originally from Perth. Originally from Perth in Western Australia. I've lived in Western Australia. I've lived in Darwin, and I was up there for about 10 years. And I met my husband up there. 10 years, and I met my husband up there, and he is from his family farm, and we moved down here in 2018.
So tell me a little bit about that move. Obviously, you're from WA and you weren't from agriculture in WA. What was it like when your husband, obviously, did you meet in an agricultural industry or completely outside of ag?
All right, so this is a tricky one. The host has kind of changed her question sort of halfway through the phrasing, so going to have to chop some of this out, and it will depend on your client. I know that this client is happy for me to remove and adjust things any way I want, as long as they come out sounding quite natural. So I'm going to go hard.
Obviously, did you meet in an agricultural? So tell me a little bit about that move.
In 2018.
So tell me a little bit about, did you meet in an agriculture?
Wondering if we can just delete this all together.
We moved down here in 2018.
Did you meet?
Insert time.
We moved down here in 2018.
Did you meet in an agricultural industry or completely outside of ag? Agricultural industry or completely outside of ag?
That's pretty good.
We moved down here in 2018.
Did you meet in an agricultural industry or completely outside of ag?
We actually met at the pub.
Completely outside of ag.
We actually met at the pub. We met at the pub on state of on state of origin night. So that
Now, normally we'd be removing but because there's a laugh here, not having it there probably sounds a bit unnatural. Try without.
met at the pub on state of origin night. So
kind of works. I'm going to leave it in though. This is like just.
We actually met at the pub.
I'm just going to leave it in.
On state of origin night. So that was that was night. So that was quite nostalgic. Night. So that's quite nostalgic. That's quite nostalgic now. And we met quite nostalgic now. We met quite nostalgic now. We met at the pub one night. Yeah, he was basically quite nostalgic now. Yeah, he was basically, I guess, having a he was basically, I guess, having a break from agriculture. He had lived on the farm and worked on the farm, and worked on the agriculture. He had lived on the farm and worked on the he had lived on the farm and worked on the farm, and he'd worked in other from agriculture, and he'd worked in other places as well. So he was just having a break. So he was just was basically, I guess, having a break from agriculture. So he was just having a break from that and traveling from agriculture and traveling and spending some time away and I was the and traveling and spending some time away and I was the same. I was and spending some time away and I was the same. I was in Perth and I just was spending some time away and I was the same. I was in Perth and I just was going up to Darwin to try something new. Up to Darwin to try something new. Going up to Darwin to try something new and going up to Darwin to try something new. Up to Darwin to try something new and basically met him a couple weeks after and never intended on finding, I guess, my forever and never intended on finding, I guess, my forever person, but that's just the way that it worked out.
So what was that conversation like? Obviously, you begun a relationship and probably didn't think too much about it in the beginning, but obviously
Worked out.
Obviously, you begun a relationship and probably didn't think too much about it in the beginning, but what was that conversation around moving back to the farm and that transition for you?
Well, the farm had always, I guess, been there. The farm had
Transition for you.
the farm had always, I guess, been there, like in the background. We would come down and visit for Christmas, holidays and Christmas, holidays for Christmas, holidays, holidays and things like that. But it was never something that was in my husband's it wasn't there in the forefront. It wasn't there in the forefront. It wasn't like there's always a plan to go to the farm. To be honest, until I actually spoke to him about moving down here, I always kind of spoke to him about moving down here. I always kind of thought, oh, well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It was never like a set in stone thing. So yeah, the neighbour's property had become available and my father-in-law actually called me one day and was like, oh, hey, how would you feel if we bought the neighbour's place? Would you move down? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, that sounds amazing.
Sweet. I think you get the idea. Assuming I'd edited all of this, I'll just run back over the audio and check the levels.
The baling twine. I was walking around the shed one day and it was like, misty kind of rain. I was just literally walking around and I knew I was going to film something, but I didn't actually know what. And
I forgot to talk about the group effects. So assuming you've got a good level coming through from each of the audio tracks, if you've got a good level coming through, it'll be working fine. So the de-esser is running here. Oops.
I think sometimes people are often so quick to judge social media and say that it does a disservice. But I think for people in regional and ag, the amount of support and community that social
And we've got a little bit of gain reduction there. This compressor is really here to control any random loud peaks that come through, or if you've got two guests that are speaking together at the same time, like speaking over each other. This one will make sure that that gets compressed and controlled. That's the whole setup. Before exporting, we'd drop our outro music, assuming that's the end somewhere there.
Sorry.
And that's a wrap. And that's it's fine.
Sorry.
We'll cut it. That'll be perfect. We'll cut it there. I'm stopping. It'll be great.
Select all loop. That's it. Now you can export in MP3 or in WAV or whatever your client wants you to export in. Yeah, if I've missed anything, if you've got any questions, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. And have a great day.